Hi everyone, this is attorney Justinian Lane of Justinian Associates, and I'm here today with
Dustin Fox for Justinian Associates.
We're Austin personal injury attorneys. We're going to talk today about a few topics that might be affecting the Texas population in the months and years to come.
South by Southwest is coming up here in March. Do you remember in 2014 where there was a big accident there?
Yeah, I do. If I recall correctly, there was a driver, I think he was drunk, he was fleeing from the police and he drove into a crowd of people. There were a lot of injuries and I think a couple of fatalities too. It was terrible.
That's right. And recently the judge dismissed that case. Obviously they were going to sue the owner of the vehicle and the driver.
Sure.
And it looks like they were trying to also incorporate South by Southwest themselves.
The festival organizers?
Yes,
Right.
Yeah. And the judge dismissed it. Can you touch on why that is, you think?
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to read the dismissal, but I'm gonna guess that I know what the issue is. Is sometimes when somebody will get sued for an event that they're controlling and bad things will happen, we can take that kind of a case and we have to argue that the event organizers could have predicted that this would happen. In the law, that's called a concept of foreseeability. Could you foresee that if you don't do something to prevent this sort of an accident would happen?
So this specific issue would have been Southwest. Could they have foreseen that someone was going to drive through the barricades, then they should be liable?
Right, that was probably what the argument is. Is it foreseeable that this sort of an accident would happen? And if it is foreseeable, then the organizers could have what's called a duty, the obligation, to take some sort of action to prevent that from happening.
I see. So in this particular case, why would this not be foreseeable?
Well, I would think that it would be foreseeable. Of course, I'm going to side that way because what I do for a living. But the festival organizers most likely argued that it's not foreseeable that somebody would be running from the police. If I was the defense attorney on that case, I would paint it all as it's not foreseeable that somebody would be drunk, fleeing from the police at this time of day, driving into this crowd. They're going to try to make it as specific as possible, so you would have to admit, well, yeah, I couldn't predict that at 9:37 a guy in a red truck who had 6 beers is going to be driving down this street into a crowd of people. But the plaintiff's attorney is going to try to say more generally that it's foreseeable that there would be an accident where a car would go into a crowd. And Dustin, were there some other incidents where there were drunk drivers in that area around South by Southwest?
Yeah, in recent years, there've been over 500 arrests with folks driving while intoxicated in just downtown where this type of accident occurred.
And one of the things we would do if we handled a case like this is to point out 500 arrests. South by Southwest is known as a big party. There's lots of drinking involved. There's lots of cars around. Downtown is very tight and congested. And we would try to argue very broadly that absolutely it's foreseeable that a car accident would occur. So this would be one of the steps that we would take is to try to hold them liable with that. That argument, it didn't seem to work out in this case, right?
No, it didn't. Well, they're going to appeal, according
Sure.
to the news. But in this particular case, the judge wasn't buying it. They just simply said that this wasn't going to be a foreseeable act by someone intoxicated, even with the numerous arrests.
Right, and the importance of foreseeability, and this goes back. There's a very old case called Palsgraf versus Long Island Railroad.
I recall.
And it was from the 1920s in New York. Every single law student who's taken a torts class has gone through this case. It's a very important case, and basically the facts of that it's kind of old timey. But there is at a train station, a person is carrying a package of fireworks, and they're carrying them under their arm. Somebody jostles into them. I believe it was an employee of the railroad is trying to help push somebody onto a train. So the train is leaving the station, trying to get them on. The package of fireworks falls, goes off because it's the 1920s and fireworks exploded if you dropped them. And the shockwave from those fireworks knocks over a scale at the other end of the station, and it falls and it injures, I believe it was a Mrs. Palsgraf. And the lawyers representing her sued the railroad, saying that, hey, you were pushing this guy and caused him to drop his package, and therefore you should be liable. And it was Justice Cardozo, who's a very famous justice, who wrote the opinion that basically said if you're going to hold somebody liable for taking an action, they have to be able to foresee that that action will cause an accident, cause the injury in question. So the court ruled that there's no way you could foresee that a guy with the package under his arm is really carrying explosives, and if you push him, it's going to fall, and this thing at the other end of the station is going to do that. So I think that is a lot different from, hey, if you're having a festival that involves a lot of alcohol in downtown Austin, that it's possible that a huge crowd of people might get hit by a car.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whenever someone's going to get pulled over while intoxicated, I think it's easily foreseeable that they're also going to run from the police. If they're going to run, they're in a huge crowd filled with people. What's going to happen? Someone's going to get hit.
Definitely. I mean, people, especially if you're already drinking, you don't make the wisest decisions. The dumbest thing you do is get behind the wheel. The second dumbest thing you can do is to try to flee the police, because then you're adding a bunch of different felony charges. I'm not sure what charges that the driver in this case had, but I'm sure they were very serious.
Yeah, I believe he was later found guilty of capital murder, and he was sentenced to life without parole.
Versus if the guy would have been pulled over, gotten, even if it was his 20th DWI, he wouldn't have been spending life in prison.
No.
So never, ever run from the police, especially if you've been drinking.